afternoon. Can you hear me well? Yes. Delighted to be with you. Thank you very much to the Belgian presidency and the agency for the invitation. Marie-Elisabeth Rosling. I'm heading public affairs at EIT Food. We actually try to convene and bring together the type of people we have in this room on a big scale, the whole of Europe, to actually stimulate innovation and make things happen in our food systems. We had, it's not always easy to start the session after lunch. We had a lot of food for thoughts, a lot of inspiration this morning, but I think it is actually absolutely topical and relevant that at a conference dedicated to the transition towards this sustainable food system, with this ambition that really is very noticeable in every session and workshop in this day, how we create synergies, how we bring policy, science, and practice, and the actors, all the players together, that really came out strongly from this morning session as a key factor of success. Therefore, I'm really delighted to be able to bring on stage quite an interesting mix and most complementary panel. I'm sorry that two of them could not make it physically with us on stage, but I will turn first to Giacomo, our head of unit for food, retail, and health at DG GROW, the European Commission. We have Monica Garcia Fernandez, who is a Deputy Director of Public Affairs at a very large company, the Val Companies Group, and Alexander on her right. Alexander is a Managing Board Member of the Association of Organic Food Processors. So thank you very much. As you can see, we have large corporates, associations representing smaller people, but we also have Fabrizio Fabri, who's from Eurocop. He's a policy manager for food and sustainability, so this is the cooperative side to our debate. And Inge Arens, the managing director of Flanders Food. So most complementary, lots of geographies. Thank you so very much to be together. We are discussing how we can be more resilient, more sustainable, which is, the back of our debate. But what is amazing is that one of the first initiatives of the Farm to Fork was the initiative that Giacomo's unit has come up with, which is a code of conduct. So there are pros, there are cons for actually voluntary versus mandatory approaches. What is very impressive is that you now have at DG GROW put together a huge community. So you will tell us a little bit more about the why and the how. But what's super timely today is that there was also the presentation, or today I think just before lunchtime, as we were busy here, of another type of a strategy, but with very actionable elements. And you will tell us a little bit more why it's important to have this type of building blocks and how you work with this. So this is, for brief introduction. Now we need to have the introduction proper about the code of conduct and its benefits and the link to sustainable pathways towards resilience.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody. Marie-Elisabeth, thanks for your words and setting the scene. Let me start as customary, but I would really like to spend a few seconds for that to thank the host under the Belgian presidency of the Union, but also the Flanders, the government of Flanders. I think this will be 3 days of very intense and fruitful exchanges. So we are very happy that we can do that. Yes, as you said, I would like to start with the code of conduct because the code of conduct, and there I have to pay also upfront a tribute because this has been joint work from us and from the colleagues in DG Sante of the European Commission, the idea is to put really, one of the first actions under the responsible sustainable food systems. Now, the idea is that the code of conduct is indeed voluntary, so don't think that because we are, or I am from the Commission, everything has to be top-down and regulatory. The idea behind is to bring together all the stakeholders in a broad sense to identify what are key elements of the code of conduct and and to have the actors committing to achieve those objectives. So this code was mainly drafted by industry stakeholders, with the Commission being a sort of a facilitator, if you want. And now we have up to more than 140 signatories, and hoping, of course, for more. What is the code of conduct about? It's about a framework for commitments of companies and associations, and they all have to submit a pledge to show what they will do to put the code in practice. A particular attention, and this is where our action to follow up now and to implement the code is focusing on, is about SMEs and the challenges for SMEs to make such commitments. So we have designed and are still working on designing also additional special arrangements for SMEs, such as, for example, more flexible reporting. There you can see the 7 aspirational objectives of the code, and they cover many areas such as food waste, circularity, but also employment and partnership, among others. But I think we will be able to go through in a moment. And as you said also, Maria Elizabeth, the other element is the transition pathway. You are doing it, Melissa? Yes. Thank you very much. So what is the transition pathway for the agri-food ecosystem? And I would like to underline, in a period where we have probably rightly a lot of attention on agriculture and on farmers, but we are looking probably also because of the mission of my service, who is more concentrating on the industry businesses, on the overall competitiveness. We have intentionally been concentrating on the whole of the value chain, and in particular on food transformation actors. The transition pathway is not legislation. Given the moment we all know right now, it can be certainly dictating or announcing new initiatives for the Commission. The idea is that we want to have a holistic approach as foreseen in the EU industrial strategy that the Commission issued, and we have basically a number of transition pathways for each sector, for each industrial sector, for each industrial ecosystem. Today we have, and I'm proud therefore to say, we have the one on the agri-food ecosystem, and there we have built it around 8 building blocks. So maybe, and given that I think time is relatively short, let me say just one word about the process. We did publish last summer a first document for public feedback and public consultation. We have held in the second half of last year workshops in order to really gather and follow up on the contribution we got from the public consultation. And now the idea is really to have a document that puts under the same, I would say, under the same roof, under the same framework, the different challenges and avenues for action, for real action, from the various stakeholders. And I would like to underline, maybe as concluding remark at this stage, that this is really a co-creation process. Is not just the European Commission or even national governments, indicating what has to be done. We really want to have this dynamic of, working together. I will come back maybe to this concept. It was reminded also this morning, by the way, in the opening speeches. We think that if we want to really have concrete advances, we have to work all along the value chain, from farmers to consumers, together with a coordinated action, of course, everyone taking his own responsibilities.
Thank you.
I'm sure we will
Thank
be
you
able
very
to,
much for
to dig
putting
more about that.
so many of these crucial building blocks in over 2 slides, and I'm sure everyone can find, the publications and the elements. So co-creation, the only way to move forward to create this snowball virtuous effect. Well done, the 140 signatories as we speak on board, very different types as we have on the panel today. So let me turn to the signatories and co-creators to actually ask you why you signed the code. What was, your priority commitment, the type of pledge that you made, and if any, what kind of progress you consider this initiative has helped you. So I'll turn to Monica first, who has some slide to help us grasp the answers to this question easier, and then Alexander, and then we come back live on the panel.
Okay. Good afternoon. One moment, I'm gonna share my screen.
That works.
No, this is not the one. One moment. This one.
Yes.
Could you? Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the invitation to this conference. It's an honor for our group to be here, and we really appreciate the opportunity to explain our sustainability strategy to you. I'm gonna explain a little bit our group. Val Combines Group is a third-generation family business group with 100% Spanish capital in the agri-food sector. We operate in the flour and feed manufacturing sectors and cover the entire value chain of the pork, poultry, and beef sectors, as well as pharmaceutical, nutrition laboratories, and logistic operations. The group is made up of 47 companies throughout Spain, and we have more than 2,600 associated farms and more than 12,000 collaborators. We become leaders in several of the sectors in which we operate. As the second national producer of wheat flour, we have a production of 1.2 million tons. In the animal livestock feed sector, we are the second largest producer at national level with a production of 2.3 million tons. In the poultry and pig meat sector, we are the leading producer at national level with a production of 170 million chickens and 5 million pigs. Okay. Let's move on our sustainability strategy. As a leading group in the meat industry, we are aware of our responsibility to contribute to caring for the environment, animal welfare, and people. We have implemented a series of measures within the framework of our sustainability strategy, named PENTA program, and we are working to achieve the targets we have set ourselves for 2030. We have 5 pillars of Penta program, and some of them are climate and circularity. PAL Compounds Group is aligned with the objectives established by the Paris Agreement to mitigate climate change. Our group is reduce the greenhouse gas emission. Specifically, we have assumed the objectives of reducing our scope 1 and 2 emission by 42% and scope 3 emission by 31%. This target has been endorsed by the SBTi initiative. In animal welfare, our goal is to obtain the highest standard of life quality for our animals. We are working to reduce the use of antibiotics by 60%. We comply with high animal welfare standards, going beyond current regulations. This has been guaranteed by several certifications. In ethical and responsible management, we are the first member of Round Table for Responsible Soy in Spain. We control the soy used for our animal feed, and 100% of our soy will be sustainable and come from non-deforested areas. As you can see, those objectives are aligned to the EU Conduct of Conduct. Let me show you some examples of reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. We aspire to reach 100% renewable sources of electricity by 2030, increasing our consumption and self-generation from renewable energies. Thus, in recent months, the group has invested 13 million euros in photovoltaic energy, incorporating solar panels, more than 32,000 panels in a large part of our production facilities. In the pig meat sector, we reduced nitrogen emission by 50% per animal over the last 30 years. Our intention is to go further by improving several parameters such as the use of nitrogen in feed, the control of nitrogen emission in the form of ammonia in the facilities, and the treatment of slurry. Our group is currently promoting several business and investment projects advocating for circular economy. For example, we have farms designed based on a circular economy model by reusing slurry as fertilizer, thus limiting nitrogen emissions. In addition, we require that all of our associated farms have the necessary tools and resources for the proper management of the waste they generate. This can be seen in one of our companies, named International Casing Product, ICP, dedicated to the production of tripe, viscera, etc. This company stands out for its high-level circularity, since these products are converted into pharmaceutical, cosmetics, animal feed, among others. It should be noted that from the commercialization of intestinal mucosa, other companies produce heparin. A clear example of our commitment to the circular economy is BioVale Heparin Science Pharmaceutical Innovation Project, that will have a production volume that will be able to meet the annual Spanish demand for heparin, 300 million doses. To this end, we will invest 25 million euros and create 20 qualified jobs. Another example is Beos Iberica, a company with a purely circular corporate purpose, is dedicated to the processing of slaughter co-products into high-quality protein raw material for the animal feed industry, pet food, and aquaculture feed. In this way, we transfer waste into an opportunity to obtain a new raw material. I sum up by saying that our commitments will be reported annually within the report on non-financial statements, including our sustainability strategy, which is externally reviewed and validated. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. As we can see, the strategy or the pledge has already translated into concrete targets and measurable efforts that pervasive to the whole group. So that is for large companies. Thank you very much, Monica. Now, if we look at a different set of companies, asking Alexander how things have translated for your association and the type of companies on board that you represent. Would you be able to tell us briefly what was the reason of signing the code?
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to have the chance to talk a bit about what we are doing here. And it's quite different from what we heard from Monica, because we are an association of companies. So that makes it totally different. I would say it's even a totally different task for us as an me as an association leader. And for sure, it even gives a different picture on what to contribute toward the code. First of all, I would like to start with a remark that the association of you translate in organic food processes. I think the more concrete translation would be ecological oriented food processes, because in the time 1992-93, our founders started with, I would say, a more holistic sustainability approach towards their company design and very much oriented toward sustainability, which what we call today sustainability. In this time, the term here in the German language was ecological orientation, something like this. The founders established the association because they worked closely together in order to fulfill, in this time, first time, the demands given by the eco-audit regulation, later known as EMERS regulation, which is still around in Europe, and these companies tried to cope with this requirement given by the European legislator, and have seen that they are all active in the food business, so we can learn a lot from each other in order to fulfill those requirements set up in the EMERS regulation and for the EMERS certification. And some of them became really the pioneers, the first dairy, the first brewery, and the first bakery having had EMERS certification in place in Europe was within our organization. And one of them is very well known, I think. It is this company HIP, which is today a brand very well known in all over Europe, and was becoming in the meantime the market leader for the baby food sector. So that is the start, and I would say because of that, it was quite clear that we will sign the code. And maybe I will give an additional remark to our organization. Our founders and even the structure as we have today was quite convinced that the approach of running, I would say, a steady improvement of sustainability performance of a company combined is even with the raw material procurement with organic products. It's a second angle which makes us today bring us together. It's a sustainability orientation and the production, more and more the production of organic products in this concept, because on the opinion of our companies, to have established or cooperate with organic producers, it means to improve the environmental performance at the farm level in the best way we in a moment can in Europe. Yes, simply saying, because of this historical background, we was from the beginning interested to follow the code procedure and have done it. And for sure, it was very clear that we want to sign it, and we have signed it. And I can give you a number. We are today 130 medium-sized and bigger companies of the food sector, mainly located in German-speaking countries in Europe. So that we are. For sure, let's wait a second. For the association, so it's most important, not because we are not active in being those people which implement sustainability measures, but we are running the network of companies which would like to do it, and our activities as an association are aims for discussing and setting up and helping the members in terms of communication, in terms of measures, in terms of exchange to fulfill their targets. And this is in fact a co-learning process, a co-creation process, which is facilitated through the networks. And I will give you a bit of insights how we following this line. And this is done by, for example, regular on-site meetings at the company level. Twice a year, we make excursions to the companies which have set up maybe interesting new management concepts or has established a new technology very helpful for fulfilling sustainability targets, as we have heard it from Monica before, and to exchange on this. Then we have set up a number of targeted working groups, for example, on net zero working group or a supply chain working group looking for deforestation, for example, or a sustainability reporting working group, which is focused on a continuous exchange of the experience made and a common approach how to implement those requirements and those practices within the companies in the best way we can.
Okay.
Yes, and for sure, once again, very important. We have set up this, I would say, this kind of excursions to learn from each other, to have by co-learning good insights in the best way to establish measures very concretely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Alexander, so we can see that for Giacomo and the team of the Commission, they have already, between the two of you, two very different partners who take, the pledges deep down into different units of the company, like the VALT groups. And in your case, you go as far as even also checking how your members, actually, or your companies implement. So these are very precious partnerships with also, we were talking this morning about accountability throughout the chain. And you see that in this co-creation process, you actually already share accountabilities with the voluntary commitment of these two types of partners. Now, regarding co-ops, so Fabrizio, you represent the European body representing co-ops. What is in for cooperatives with this code of conduct? What kind of pledge? And so we'll come back here to the live discussion. Could you please tell us a little bit more about why you joined? Yes. What got you on board?
Yeah. Good evening.
Just speak. Speak.
Yeah.
Well.
Okay. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for the invitation. In fact, we are here to present an action taken by COP Sweden. They have invested in the sustainability project. I think we can just show the first slide. Yeah, COP Sweden is engaged since 2021 in trying to select a number of food products that are for which there are enough information about certain number of parameters encompassing and covering the three dimension of sustainability. Most of them are, of course, on the environmental side, but there are social consideration and economic aspect taken into account just as well. At the moment, the declaration, all the parameters have been developed jointly with NGOs and research institutes. They have worked for over a year together before coming up with a certain number of indexes, parameters, how to measure them, and how to convey this information to the public. At the moment,
was co-creation on the ground as well?
Yeah, well, actually, it's not that much of a co-creation because it's COP Sweden. Yeah, of course, it's a co-creation says that all the indexes have been decided and come on with a work done with across several organizations and scientific measure. But then it's COP Sweden that took the initiative to invest, in fact, a team of 4 or 5 people to develop this kind of activity, which means, of course, that the information needs to be gathered by the food producer, So they have to discover and to disclose the information that COP Sweden looks for through a number of certification body that can prove that the food industry claims is in fact at least supported by an independent body. We can go further just to show you those are the 10 parameters that are included in the sustainability declaration. They go from, I found particularly sensible the part dedicated to biodiversity. As you know, there is a big discussion on how to apply other kind of labeling or like the product footprint indexes and stuff like that. But unfortunately, the food system has a particular specificities that needs to be addressed. And it's not just like any other product for which the footprint is in a way easier. We know that food production implies an impact on several dimensions, and biodiversity is one of those dimensions that other schemes just don't cover. That's why I'm insisting on that. Of course, there are all other issues from greenhouse gases emission to water, eutrophication, and chemicals added, social and economic indexes like working condition, local population, the impact of those activity on the local population, and conformity and traceability, which are important for the control. We can just go.
So they capture the actual complexity of food system with, it is loaded, it is an attempt. Do you use it as the European partner of Eurocop to actually build similar capacity or grids among other members? Because many countries, many regions might benefit from it, or is it too early?
Of course. This is one of the aim of the program in Sweden. They have made all open source and is free for access to from everybody. And COP Sweden is ready to scale it up even to other entities. I would just go through very quickly. This is. I've taken just one of those indexes. This is why how the information are then put into a set of information that gives different kind of score, and the higher is the score, the higher is the impact on that specific parameter. Of course, there are this information for each of indexes. We can go next, please. And how to transfer this to the people, and this goes with the labeling. We think that, in fact, a complex issue like sustainability is not fit for purpose of being communicated in a kind of streetlight system like EcoScore try to do, but it's not correct because there is not a product entirely which scores the best for on the all the indexes. There are always shades of grays, and it's important that the consumer can look at the information and looking which are the more critical part of that specific food product with respect of the parameters taken into account. Here I've taken just two examples. Meat and vegetable protein, local and global distribution. So whether there is a difference between, and I think it's very clear. It shows and it can show the consumer what is the impact, the overall impact of that specific product, and they can compare whether there is any advantage, any basic advantage to consume local food on that specific food. If it doesn't, in example like the meat, you can see, there are a lot of parameters that improves, but in terms of greenhouse gases emission example, we know that the transport for meat is not the main cause for greenhouse gases emissions. So that's very clear from the graph. We can go further. This information is provided through an app. which is available for the customer, and through which they can scan. Actually, there are around 20,000 products that report their QR code that once scanned can give all those information, provide all this information to the consumer. So that's a way of engaging people. First of all, providing the right information or the most complete one. Yeah. We are ready to accept any other, as long as they cover the complexity of the food system.
Yeah, well done on taking on board all this complexity. One could imagine that at some point you can put on each dot even a price for, the cost of.
Yeah. It's theoretically
associated
you can
to the
put a price
on
the impact on society. Something is easy to do, something less.
So Giacomo, I can see you nodding. So you must be happy to see all the different, generated, additionally created project that now, after a few years of this code of conduct, seem to be finding, ways and territories to be applied all the way to consumer.
No, of course. I'm glad because I think we have been able this afternoon, although of course with the constraint of timing, to summarize the approach of 3 different actors that show for each of them the different interests and challenges as well. And for us, of course, as European Commission, as a public organization, it's important. First of all, I think the first challenge is to make the code known. More in particular to SMEs who are there in their business and maybe have not really the time to digest it, although it's quite straightforward, I think, but we see how complicated it can be then to implement it in practice and all the work that is behind it. And secondly, how to provide support in particular to SMEs, but I'm sure that we have the opportunity to come back to the element. For us, it's a central challenge to be sure that
more snowball effect.
Yes, for sure. A lot of big companies have a similar type of commitments already in place even before the code of conduct in many cases. But for SMEs and to have it as a really voluntary and broad, I would say, type of action. This implies a number of challenges that we are addressing and we want to address.
Okay, and now turn to Inge, because Inge represents a different animal, different beast in this code of conduct. You're a cluster. Tell us, and you're also a logo cluster, how, for a cluster, this code of conduct can actually stimulate
as Flanders Food, we didn't sign ourselves the conduct, but we are part of Food Drink Europe, and they signed it for everybody that is in food industry and is involved with Food Drink Europe. So, because this is what I want to say about SMEs, as a cluster, we are not a company, we are not an association, we are not a research institute, we are not a government, but we are bringing all those organizations together. So the cluster organization is organizing the activities and is together with all those partners. It's industry-driven membership. So we have more than 300 companies from industry that are paying some bills, that are also making the strategy, that we are thinking together for 10 years, but we are thinking together with research institutes, because there you have all the brains and all the people that have good ideas about potential solutions and opportunities for the future. And also the government, of course, we are funded by the Flemish government, and without their support, it's also not possible. So you really need all the parties together. And if we then do that strategic exercise, more than 70% of our members are SMEs, and without signing a conduct, they really said in the strategy, we want to have solutions for the societal and economic changes we see on our path for the next 10 years. So it's not because you don't sign the conduct and because you're an SME that you're not aware of the fact that you have to do something. But of course, they are smaller companies, they don't have their own R&D management, so they need support, and it's by bringing everything together, you have a kind of synergy, because then we can pool a little bit the money, but the brains, and the good ideas, making projects, helping them in the R&D, finding support mechanisms, so like funds and grants for the research. And in a way, we also have a system that we need also the large companies because they are like triggering the research. They are starting with some projects with the universities, and at a certain moment we have know-how, knowledge that we can translate, transfer to a big group of SMEs. So these are all the type of activities that we organize as a cluster. So we make sure that the building blocks of knowledge are there. We also make sure that we have like activities for transferring the know-how, and it's by lecturing, but it's also by making demonstrations, by building something like a machine so that they see how it works. And at a certain moment, we also had the question, we want those machines ourselves also to play a little bit. So we have, I think for 5 years now, we have invested in a lot of pilot infrastructure. We started in the food pilot in Melle, but we now also have some parts in Roeselare for everything that is prepared meal. We have done in Kortrijk for everything that is the vegetables and the frozen products, or Belgian fries, of course. And also now in Brussels we have on fermentation potential pilots of fermentation. That's beer, that's chocolate, that's the good bread. So we make sure that there is facility for them to use it, but again, this facility is like a combination of project funds, sometimes from the European Commission, some co-financing from the Flemish government, and then also mostly up to 25% of the money at least coming from the private sector. So it's always that combination that is making it the strengths. And as a cluster organization, we now also get the question of looking for investments, because innovating research towards sustainability, but at a certain moment you need to invest in your company, you have to buy the machines, you have to install the processes. So also the questions we get from the SMEs are more and more diverse in what they ask us. So also looking how we can support startups, but this is actual everything that we have to do as a cluster organization. And also within Europe, we are looking for other cluster organizations, because we are one in Flanders, but you also have one in the Walloon area, Wagralim. We have a cluster organization in every region in Europe. So it's also like working together as clusters to help all those SMEs in Europe taking the leap.
Cross-border,
yes.
Many more collaboration. Well, I think we can say that the Code, the initiative, has inspired many different types of commitments, but that there is this clear sort of pathway that there's no other way but to build together, dealing with the complexity, but also bringing together figures, things that can get measured, about the progress of your pledges. So where do you see the next kind of priorities or steps for the Code? You mentioned more communication, reaching out to more of the SMEs, but from all these lessons learned or good things that has happened and all this snowball effect that has been generated, which kind of priority would you like to see reinforced, or perhaps that you're already working on at the Commission?
Yes, thank you, Maria-Elisabeth, and thank you also for this testimony of how, SME support networks all across Europe. We have the example now of the Flemish region, and this is reproduced elsewhere, can really have an important role in this co-creation, and I would say co-implementation. The future, well, of course, I cannot avoid today of making the reference, as I did, to the transition pathway, but we are working on which is nice to have now, a holistic document identifying through co-creation what are the main challenges, but we need to work on it. And this is why I think the idea now and the things we are working on, at least at the level of my service at the Commission, is to offer the opportunity to all stakeholders to first be informed about existing and upcoming projects and network, but also to offer companies and in particular, of course, SMEs, to learn from each other, to share best practices, and also to have a workshop and forum functionality. So we are building for the transition pathway a platform that hopefully will be operational by the end of the year, that will allow, I would say, a series of operations for the actors at different level. Another point that came out of the public consultation phase was the need to provide information and training to all actors in the value chain based on scientific evidence for the food transition. And therefore, we are also planning on the platform to put news and articles about the agri-food ecosystem to share this information, and therefore trying to equip at best the stakeholders and the actors with the tools that can help them in implementing this challenging objective. And of course, let me say once again, we cannot imagine to do that from Brussels. Really, the role of intermediaries, being it associations, like we heard from Alexander, being it SME support or business support networks, are essential.
So lots ahead, very practical and action-orientated. That's, the angle. So completely in line with code of conduct, also practical. Now we have these building blocks, which I'd like to now bring to the discussions, because this is a super ambitious. So it's not a legislation, but it's a set of, let's say, priorities that you have discussed after the public consultation with, all the voluntary players who could spend many hours with you and your teams in workshops to really work on something that would, be super relevant for the challenges that in 2024 we now face. One big challenge to me is, like we talk, trade-offs are always necessary in our food system, is how do we reconcile sustainability with competitiveness? What are the kind of trade-off that might have to be made? Can these two concepts go hand in hand? And this is where I would like to turn to our industry and actors, colleagues. So maybe Fabrizio, how would you say things can be reconciled? How to optimize at the same time that we focus, we engage with products like you just mentioned on this path at the relevant scale that Europe really needs to make a difference also in competitive terms?
Well, actually...
not an easy question.
Not too easy, certainly not an easy task. It's very political, I think, practical just as well. First of all, what we have seen is done by COP Sweden is just an example of how private actors can anticipate a direction and can play what Commission has always referred to as the front runners. So the front runners are those private entities that took the risk of advancing something. But for the front runners to be paid back in their effort, then should be something following. And I would say that, an example, having missed the possibility to have a sustainability food system. I know I'm not giving all the false commissions, quite the contrary. But having missed that piece of legislation, in a way, penalizes the front-runner actions, for a very simple reason, that the market is still overflowed with unsustainable, cheap, most of the time, junk food. And so that's a big problem, because in the end, when people go to the supermarket, they make their choice on the price first. And we have to keep it in mind. There are no other considerations. There is a niche of consumers which are educated enough, but but when it comes to prices, that's the real makes the difference. So if we treat the same way a food producer which is committed to go through a sustainable path, or a retailer or whoever, but we don't put a real price on the other food products, the real price, the hidden cost, in terms of all the three dimensions, because I want to remember that even organic farming, unfortunately, somewhere, the working condition for people working in organic farming are unacceptable, just as well than the normal farming. So I think that the three dimension needs to be taken into account, and the price that the impact of the normal food on those parameters needs to be taken into account in the final price. If this is not going to happen, then I'm afraid to say that any sustainable food or food product will remain a niche and won't scale up. And this should be applied to imported food as well.
So you're talking fair pricing, transparency, information to consumer all the way about all these dimensions. But this is almost like, or could be seen as still sort of negative, sort of punishment. You mentioned earlier, how do we reward those who are the front runners, those who are taking the extra step and mobilizing families, colleagues, partnerships, etc. Is there a different way to treat them, motivate them?
I'm afraid, again, I mean, there are a lot of consideration, of course. There is a lot of speculation on food chain, and we have to recognize it. We have farmers in the street. I'm absolutely with those farmers who have manifested for not being paid enough for their food. But the problem is those farmers I've seen on the street, well, they've probably misunderstood what are the real causes here. Because here the real causes here is the elephant in the room for many discussions have happened to me to do on sustainability, is the idea is that the market makes the rules. The market shouldn't make the rule. Politicians should make the rule, and the market should be adapted to the rules. It may seem old-fashioned, but I'm afraid if we rely anything on the market, anything on the positive side, the sustainable food being widespread, there's no way of widespreading sustainable food as long as I said, there are cheaper alternatives that are causing the problem we are facing now. So the two things needs to go along. It's not a punishment, in fact. It's not punishment. It's just exposing the hidden subsidies that we are giving to unsustainable food system. That's the real problem. We are subsidizing indirectly the production of unsustainable food by allowing them to be sold at the cheapest price. And that's will always win in the large majority. So it's not a punishment at all. It's just to make it clear that if a product has a certain cost in terms of environmental, social impact, it needs to be reproduced into the final cost. This is not punishment, it's just fairness.
Come back to how this day open, true accounting as a number one recommendation we touched upon. We will have to also look at consumers' behavior and how they change behavior or not as a result of the price, which we know, especially at Agrifood, we have a large consumer observatory that tends to demonstrate that it takes a lot more, elements, and it's not always a rational decision when you're shopping in a supermarket. But let me come back to this point of sustainability versus competitiveness. I wanted to ask Monica, because Monica is a big player. How have you reconciled your commitments to sustainability, and did you have to renounce certain things, or did you gain in competitiveness? How is the whole process working for the Val Group?
Okay. We think sustainability and competitiveness, particularly in livestock production, can indeed go hand in hand with a strategic implementation of appropriate practice. examples on efficient resource management, implementing sustainable practice, such as efficient water usage, energy management, waste reduction, not only reduce environmental impact, but also cut costs in the long run. For example, optimize both at the same time is to improve formulations to reduce environmental impact and minimize the carbon footprint. Balanced nutrition not only improves animal health and welfare, but also enhance productivity. Another important aspect is to educate consumers about the importance of sustainability in the agri-food sector. Engaging consumers through transparent communication about sustainable practice can build brand loyalty and preference.
So far, so good. Very virtuous effects and positive contribution to your efforts that you see, and also across all the different divisions, right, of the group.
Yes. We think by adopting a holistic approach that integrates sustainability principle into business strategies and operations, while also focusing on improving efficiency and competitiveness. The agri-food sector can achieve long-term viability and resilience in the face of evolving market dynamics and environmental challenges.
Thank you. Well, talking of holistics and whole value chain, that takes me to another of the building blocks of the sustainable pathways. How about the collaboration between the different players and components of the value chain? You know, is this effort towards, you know, on this pathway, helping to actually build not just confrontations, polarized debate between two types of players in the chain? Do you have, you know, perhaps Alexander, some comments on the opportunities for collaboration that you have seen grow and happen because of your steps taken on this pathway?
Yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity to quickly come back to this topic. First of all, I would like to mention what was said before by Fabrizio, that we have currently in the market the problem that those actors which externalize in the best way environmental and social costs tend to have the best price, and therefore the true pricing concept is a very important one. The other way around, if you want to establish something different, for example, a more sustainable product, more healthy products, you will have to face with the situations that you have maybe not the best price. And this is one of the elements which leads to collaboration within the chain. And I would like to point out one element where we was quite active with in the last years. It is about the contracting in the supply chain, but mainly between processors and farmers, and to establish new product chains. One of the, I would say, the most traditional one is for sure for us the organic one, where you need to convince the farmers going into a 3 years of conversion period where you cannot sell the product 2 years as organic, and to convince them, you really as an operator need to set up contracts attractive for them and giving them the economic security in order to be willing and able to invest in those kind of management shift in the operation. And this is one of the elements we really was going forward. And these concepts are not only helpful for transferring into organic systems, even helpful if you go for new product types. For example, if you go for soy or other bean products, which come now more start to be more attractive in the market with the vegan movement and things like that. Though you have systems in place where you can act together with your farmers in a way that you build up together with them a new market chain, and even this we try but it depends on the marketing system our partners have, even to take the retail within the boat, to win them for new marketing systems, and that is quite successful project. But I would like to come back to what Monica says. It's very, very important is communication, and we really started an intensive program with, I would say, call it a collaborative or coordinated communication among our operators. So to help them to be successful and up to date with their communication structures, for especially for the new market topics. So thank you.
So marketing, communication, and going, all the way to also what could be described as social contracts. These new 3-year contracts across the chain. Okay, would Monica would like to react on that, or perhaps Giacomo to this?
Okay. As I explained in my presentation, I think promoting several investment projects, through contribute the fulfill sustainability strategies is very important for our sector. On a national and European level, the finance sector and the retailers are the main stakeholders that drive the implementation and improvement the sustainability strategies. Collaborating with suppliers, producers, distributors, and retailers enhance transparency through the supply chain. This can involve implementing traceability system, for example, sharing information about production practice, and ensuring compliance with sustainability standards and certifications. On an international level, the European Union must make sure that the imports fulfill the standards required by the European producer for the purpose of having a fair and international trade. We think also that to implement the changes envisaged by the environmental legislation and to encourage good practices that make Europe a leader in the international context, is essential that farmers are provided with the necessary resources. This can be done in the short term through flexibility and simplification of the common agricultural policy, on which the Council and the Commission are already working, and in the long term through a review of the CAP for the post-2027. To make sure that sustainability does not jeopardize but enhance the European strategy autonomy, it's crucial for the EU to ensure that goods entering the internal market comply with all environmental and animal welfare standards of EU regulations.
Okay, well, that's a big program for next Commission. Giacomo, do you have, I think your work cut out for you with a list of things. How do you see, perhaps, from all these commitments and concrete efforts of very different natures and origin, working with you and your teams on these codes, on the sustainable pathway, basically organizing the transition towards more resilience. Is it something that would be interesting for your part of the Commission to feed into others who are, we discussed a bit of CAP here, national programs, regional programs. Is it something that you're doing with what you see happening in your big family of signatories and contributors?
Yes, indeed. And maybe let me come back to the basic question that you asked before, certainly, and I'm glad that this was somewhat already emerged. Sustainability objectives and competitiveness are not contradictory. I think we can all agree on that. We heard that this morning. The difficulty, of course, is where to strike the right balance between the different, I would say, actions and implications for the various objectives. And let me say, frankly, also that even within the Commission, Certainly, we can feel the challenge of having, even at policy level, a coordinated approach. I hope that all the efforts now being put, if we look, for example, at the current strategic dialogue on the future of probably not just agriculture, but food systems in general, hopefully, we can identify also better ways and improvement in the policy making. But I think the secret, and I hope this addresses your question, is that, and it has emerged already, I think fairly evidently from the discussion we had, is really also from the policy point of view and for the policy implementation, it's collaboration among the different stakeholders. We can do policy here or close to here in Brussels, but most of the both, I would say, active role of support, but also getting the right feedback arrives at regional and local level. And this is where, again, and I think it was highlighted, it's very important to have, I would say, a continuous interaction and link. And this will be, I think, the major challenge for all players. We are already working, okay, I provide the example of the code of conduct, and now we will be working on the implementation of the transition pathway, but the guiding line will be precisely to make an attempt and ensure that there is an optimal, interlinkage and coordination between the actors. And by the way, this is valid also, I think it was mentioned already, when it comes to, at the end, what matters probably most immediately for the companies financing. There are different ways. There is EU financing, there is national financing through or regional and local financing, there is private financing. Often, and I think from the perspective of SMEs in particular, this can be challenging to navigate through this ocean. So I think at the Commission as well, and working together once again with the actors at local level, we should really try to make, a sort of streamlined approach that can put then the actors in the best condition in order to deploy platform. As I said, the platform is one objective. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that SMEs, might be those less well served to access this information, and there's the usual criticism that it's all a maze of so many different systems with different rules. But turning to Inge, you see a lot of SMEs and financing innovation or the benefit of innovation for you SMEs. How does it tally with your efforts as a cluster? How are you supporting them? Are there examples of projects that really work well?
I'm lucky I have a lot of examples, because I have a rather pessimistic feeling now that it's very difficult to get the sustainable food in the market, and that you need regulations before companies will do it. And from the innovation part, maybe the SMEs I see, they are quite different. So I still are optimistic that maybe the market will change itself. And of course, consumers need to understand what is sustainability. So you need a lot of education. What is sustainability, and why should they believe if somebody says it's a sustainable product? But for example, examples I see from SMEs, we have with the type of projects now, the successor of the InnoSub projects is now for us, the interregional innovation investment projects. They are very interesting because as a clusters together in Europe, we can build up coaching programs, training programs, but also have little projects where SMEs can, or they do an investment in their factory that they can show, that they can demonstrate to other SMEs that it's possible at an SME level to do something on that sustainability. So we have a project High Five on the twin transition, digital and sustainability. But also in those calls, we can give vouchers. It's 60,000 euro per SME, and they have to collaborate, and they do some validation traject. And for example, we have a project of a Flemish company, La Confiance. They make another type of Biscoff. So we have the big brand Biscoff, but they make the traditional way of speculoos. And at a certain moment, it was a digital project. They were together with a Dutch producer of a new oven. They wanted to replace the labor of the baker because it's very difficult on the market to find real professional bakers. So it's on the labor market, it's difficult to find them, to find some artificial intelligence, something like that, to discuss, to have the decision on the line when the oven is working well, if it's a good baked cookie or not. So it started with a problem on the labor market, with a digitization solution. And at the end, if they now have finished the project and they do the calculation, they see they have a lot of earnings on the less food waste because of that artificial intelligence, and the oven is deciding on a better way on temperatures. They don't have a lot of products that they are. So it's like the win-win. Economically, it's a good solution, and on the same time, it's also sustainability. If you look at the animal production, we have, for example, the project, the Future Flemish Pig, because in Flanders we have a very important race of pigs. We are known and we are exporting a lot of that meat, but we don't want those pigs that are fed with products that are coming from other continents or that are maybe human food. So we are thinking about a circularity, that we have a race of pigs that only can grow on waste streams from food industry or agri-food industry. So this is also a project that is coming from SMEs. It's an SME that is responsible for the genetics. It's an SME that is responsible for the feed part. It's an SME that is responsible, it's Bivit, it's Gandaham, that is making. So the slaughterhouse is maybe already a large company, but we have built a chain, and 5 companies together, research institutes, are thinking together, working together, a research project, how they can come to that new race of pigs. And it's very difficult because the pig needs to be for the fresh market, for the technological part, for the processed meats. It's not easy, but they're coming up themselves with that idea. They didn't need somebody upstairs that was saying that. But in fact, you need us as cluster to organize this type of projects. And of course, you need the instruments that I've mentioned before, that you can find also solutions for the higher TRL, so for the demonstration projects, for the investment projects that also are funds. And this is very difficult for member states because then you also have that state aid. So it's really something that the European Commission should keep on supporting, because we see a lot of, because there are 2 examples, but we also have an example with nuts. So I can sit here the whole afternoon giving nice examples of SMEs doing it without being forced. So I'm rather optimistic on that, but they need help, they need clustering, they need matchmakers and people that are coordinating them, more like facilitators than regulators.
Okay,
so I'm
that's
not
another
so
nice list for you, but I can say with my EIT food hat that the fact that you bring people together to stimulate, thinking together, co-creating, trying and testing and failing and starting again is the only way. And you need, all geographies and cross collabs. So fully agree. And also on the perhaps, let's say, optimistic view, because of all these initiatives and the positive effect they're having, I think it's important. Maybe we haven't touched yet really on actual bottlenecks. You mentioned the baker. What about skills? Having the right skills, isn't it the big issue that we are facing increasingly for food system? Very quickly, just one yes or no.
For me, the bottleneck is it's new business models. So, and it's very difficult because this is a type of research that is rather new. I think mostly we see technological research. If you see in the food system, because it's not a food chain anymore, it's a system, and you want to have other ways of producing products. For example, the nut project is really like 3 companies. The one that is pressing the nuts for nut oil has to decide at a certain moment that his economic value will be lower because he will press less oil, that the cake is containing more oil, so is a better quality. as a waste product that becomes a
with
food
less
product.
yield.
So the first producer has less yield, then they have a pressed cake that is better as an ingredient for the second user, but then you need other ways of thinking about business. So it's really, for me, maybe skills, okay, that's more on the labor market, but I think on innovation, on changing the food system, we will need new approaches of organizing the business with retailers, with companies, to each other. So this will be, for me, a bottleneck, because today we don't have the answers yet on the economical level.
Yes, I would say that definitely skills is one of the important blocks, and in fact we have addressed it also in our transition pathway. I'm glad to say, actually, if I have to make just one comment, that when we think about the so-called twin transition, so green and digital transition, but also when we speak about resilience of our systems, and by the way, this is not only valid for the agri-food ecosystem, but also for others. Skills is probably the area where there is a more facilitated avenue for collaboration between really the different actors along the value chain. The examples we have in the agri-food, in the Pact for Skills, just to name them, is that we have, for example, set up a Pact for Skills, and there is an excellent collaboration between the organizations, being it, the biggest one in Europe representing farmers and the agricultural level, Copa-Cogeca, but also the transforming industry, Food Drink Europe. So, of course, this is the frame. Then it has to be transformed into specific actions. But from what I can see, and since my service, by the way, is also responsible, among others, for the health industry, we have the same. I think that the skills is an area where it's less disputed, probably, and there is more convergence of views on what shall be done in order to face the challenges of digitalization. And by the way, there as well, I'm not saying that because we are in the European Year of Skills, there are also there possibilities, among others, also at European level of supporting with finance, the upskilling and reskilling that are needed in the sector. And I know that also at EIT, you are paying also particular attention to that aspect as well. So certainly it's an area where I would say there is less controversy about then how to implement the actions. At least it's the experience we have so far.
Thank you for sharing. So this workshop is becoming increasingly positive. Let me turn to the audience. I think we have microphones. Maybe you would have, questions or comments on, engaging further, faster on this pathway towards more resilience and sustainability for our food system. You might want to say who you are, where you speak from, and if you have a question for one of our panelists in particular.
Hello. I would like to come back on your comments. There's a good need for good business models. My observation as well, there are a lot of European projects where we work on that, but sometimes, if you be honest, they're a bit academic. Yeah. What would be the elements of a good business model, and how would you like to see it implemented or advised or disseminated or whatever to make it common to the SMEs?
Peter, you haven't said who you are.
So my name is Peter Holl and I'm from the German Institute of Food Technologies. Sorry.
Yes, I thought I said I had no solution yet, so we need some new possibilities. I think, as SMEs, they are like mostly an SME that are people that are running the SMEs are more like down to earth. So if they see a good example of a friend SME or a lookalike SME and it works, I think they will be rather copying that than reading some academic papers. So you need to convince some SMEs to show, because some of them invent themselves the business model, like the one I say from the the 3 SMEs in Flanders that are working on that nuts, they invented it themselves. And thanks to the grants we get from the Flemish government, we can support them in just making products together. And now they are also willing, so they are very friendly. So we can demonstrate it, we can make a little movie to play it on the national TV. So, and I hope that this will give inspiration to other SMEs to start thinking the same way. But I'm a rather idealistic person. A lot of people are saying I'm looking for the Holy Grail. So then I go to the CEOs of the bigger companies in Flanders and I say, it's my approach of zero waste. So I say, I want to go to a moment that you don't have waste anymore, that every side stream is in fact a new food product. So, and then I explain that thing of having less yield and first step and first producer, and then they think, they look at me and they say, Inge, we don't think this will work. And then I think, yes, it will work, you will see it within 20 years, and then you will say that you have invented yourself. But this is, I think you have to believe with little showcases and that it will build up and little successes, and at a certain moment that people will see that it's really working and it becomes the standard business model. But I think we need 20 years. I don't think it will be tomorrow. So it will go slow.
20 years. Do you agree?
Actually, if I may just add on it, I'm not sure we got 20 years. Maybe I'm too pessimistic. I have the bad habit of reading through scientific, as you know, but scientific reports all over. If we have not already overgone on some tipping points, we are very close to it. It's not, I'm afraid, it's not choosing and talking about the very good examples that you provided. There are hundreds of them, thousands of good examples of people engaging, committing to do, but we can't follow that pattern where each one chose, yeah, I will reduce some water, I'm going to look some more animal welfare, I'm reducing CO2, maybe with the offsettings, which doesn't work, but it's allowed. So we need a unique measure that eventually drives us where we need to go. And I'm afraid 20 years, it's really a lot of time. And that's why I was saying that indeed we need regulation. I'm afraid, I'm old-fashioned. I'm for command and control. When it comes to certain needs, yeah, because we are facing disaster. It's around the corner. We're seeing disasters coming, and food production system is first at stake. And we are facing the 6th mass extinction of animal, and we are not stopping it. And there are reports. It's not just me. When the impact assessment from Commission comes out, it says voluntary measure don't work. I'm old enough to have spent my last 35 years working on environmental policies, and you can go back and see there is no one single issue that has been tackled by voluntary actions.
We just spent the first block of this session talking of one that works, called Code of Conduct. Let me turn to Alexander, because Alexander, your initiative, before the Code of Conduct even existed or the pledges were discussed, you were already on it. So you've been working, I think, 30 years on the issue that now you're sharing with us. What do you think of this time frame? Europe is working towards 2030, 2050 target, etc. Is this, realistic? Mm-hmm. What can we do faster? And, using instruments or designing or improving some of the instruments that we've discussed. What would be your recommendation to Giacomo, for example?
Thank you very much. As you see, my beer getting white, so I'm getting old and nervous, and see that the time is running out. Open spoken, and I would say yes, I can agree with what was said beforehand. Open spoken, to make it very quick. I think if we manage to stop externalization from environmental and social costs. Then market economy will play a major role in doing a shift. And this is, from my point of view, the most efficient system to establish. But we're far away from this. We are far away from this, that the externalization is stopped, and therefore market economy can do the best job. For the operators, they have a different role because they have to survive with their business within the concept which is given by regulation framework, by economic framework, by market economy. For them, maybe we have some elements I will quickly put back on the desk because it was always already put forward by Inge. For example, for us, concepts of co-producers, as it is called by Slow Food, seems for us an interesting new tool, even for SMEs, looking in the direction of adapting, I would say, community-supported business concepts, for example, where the consumers come closer to the producers and the processors and the retail in order to cooperate, whether it is a new construction where all the facilities or all the production facilities are within, or whether it is a cooperative model as we know it from the past, for example, in some countries very well developed. It's not depending, but I would say it's open. But this seems for us the most, in the moment, maybe the most efficient economically and social economically based concepts for putting forward sustainability concepts. Because in this case, the consumers at the end of the food chain becomes, I would say, a responsible part of the production and the environmental performance within the overall production. And this could be a major shift, I would say, pushed forward by the operators from themselves.
Thank you. So there was 2 more questions, and I'd like to come back in the conclusion about this major shift that Alexander mentioned, to ask you to think now, dear panelists, about what is the one thing to actually achieve the major shift we need, that you consider should be total priority for the next political cycle, in one thing. So meanwhile, we take your questions.
Hi, thank you. I'm Veronique Nelis. I'm working for the Flemish government. Thank you for your talk. This talk was also about the digital transition, so I'm actually happy Inge also talked a bit about it, but well, there is a huge shift in the digital era, and to my opinion, Agrifood is not always the leader on the digital plan. How do you see that? Or like, how does Europe vision the future on that perspective?
Is that a question for Giacomo?
I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess it's for me. Yeah, thank you very much. In fact, I must say that in the document of the transition pathway, we look definitely at it's, I would say, one of the ambitions of this type of document of the transition pathway is to look at the twin transition, and therefore we include the digital transition. And I tend to agree with you, since I had also the advantage to compare different industrial ecosystems, as we call them, that probably in the agri-food, for reasons that it might be long to discuss here, it's not certainly probably the most advanced one. But on the other hand, it's very well aware, and innovation and technological development play an important role, and we don't have to think only to the primary level, of agricultural production, but once again, we have to think about the value chain. The only thing I can say in the short time frame we have is to say, have a look to the document. The document has collected also a lot of feedback and interaction, is the result of interaction with different actors. We have to invest in that, and being it from the side of innovation. If you think about the Commission only, but of course we are not the only player, but if you look at the side of innovation and policies to support digitalization, I think there is full understanding that there is no, I would say, sectoral preference. And therefore agri-food, and I think it's very much up to us and to you to make sure that the agri-food sector is one of those who are also, an active player in the digitalization, in facing the digitalization challenges, but also the benefits that come out of it. That's what I can say, of course, in the very short time.
Thank you. And one last question here.
I'm trying to be quick. Nelly Haidu from CELCA, the European Legion Committee for Agri-Food Trade, so the in-between Copa Cogeca and Food Drink Europe. We are basically also an essential part of food systems. Just 2 comments. Normally, I am the one who says we're all going to die, so I'm happy you said it. I think there is a certain urgency with that regard, and I think what I miss in European policies, and that's why I like that you mentioned it, is we missed the contingency planning. We go into a substantial change. Food production in Europe will be changing. We will have crop migration. Countries which are now for food producers for Europe will maybe no longer produce anymore. So we have to really go into this analysis, and I think this is really important, and that will lead to Inge's point. You know, we will create new business opportunities from that. So there is the positive side in that. So I wanted to make that link because I think you said something really important, and it's not stressed enough. Also this morning, again, there were so many topics mentioned, but again, the geographic shift we're going to experience and what it will make with our society, our business, our food systems, I think we haven't done enough yet. And then I just wanted to give you a compliment because it rarely happens. I think the transition pathways and the methodologies you've been using for co-creation is a really good approach in involving stakeholders on a very accountable way. So I would really encourage you to do that more often and even in a more creative way, because it really led to already a thinking process in the groups. It was a really good approach. I think you should also hear that from time to time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And the merit goes, of course, to the team, but also to the various colleagues who have been working on that. We definitely hope that there are many streams of reflection at policy level, but that we, of course, we also, I would say, influence or you know, give our input in the future overall policy shaping that will take place later in the year or beginning of next year with the new Commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. And so back to my last question, and you have to be very sharp and very pointed. You mentioned the shift needed, the kind of speed that we need to realize. So to actually face and tackle these 2 challenges of playing, reacting, transitioning at the level required, at the speed required, what is the number 1 thing you would recommend either to one of you for, you know, your company, your association, or to the Commission? The one thing that would make the difference according to you. You want to start?
I want to start and be very short,
because
I think I mentioned it already, but I think the key element is really, let me define it as active and meaningful collaboration between the actors at the various level. Not only policy, but also stakeholders and also, yes, not easy, but it's
across
essential.
the whole value chain. Okay.
I would say a clear and well-defined policy framework, in fact. It's what we need, with well-identified parameters of the minimum parameters that needs to be respected, with a time frame and with an indication about how the financial and economic instruments which are already there can be more efficiently diverged toward a real sustainable food system.
Okay, Inge?
Being conscious, believe in people, believe in their will to make things happen, to know that we are in a global life, and it's with a strategic plan, with innovation, and 20 years is not so far away, and it's step by step, and after 10 years we will be already halfway. So I believe in optimistic working
positivity
together and collaborative and innovation, and all together we will transform the food system to a better one.
Thank you. Alex, let me get the 2 colleagues as well. Final 2 panelists. Alexander and then Monica.
Yes, yes, it's. I think it's a lot already said. I think first of all, I very much trust within the SMEs and the operations that they need to go forward and should be, I would say, full energy and a hopeful outview to the future. That is first of all, and secondly, I still trust in the society that they will understand the needed shift and the people will go along to a, I would say, to a new, better world, ready for our childs and childs. So that's it.
Thank you. And Monica, you have the last word. Recommendation.
We understand that environmental protection is important, and as such, the examples committed we have. However, environmental sustainability must go hand in hand with economic sustainability and cannot compromise food security. Specific support and simplification mechanisms are needed to assist companies in carrying out this transition without jeopardizing European food sovereignty.
Thank you. Well, let me thank you all very much, and in the audience for your questions. Colleagues from abroad, join me in a big, strong round of applause for our panelists. Thank you.
And also thank you to Marie-Elisabeth.